Hey y'all, hey, it's Patty with Giddy Things. I hope that you're doing well. As promised, we are going to do a little Bible application today. Now, again, I use the Bible as a sacred text. It's crucial to the way that I live my life. That may not be the case for you, and that's okay. You can still apply these things like you would apply anything from the works of Confucius or any ancient text, Plato, Aristotle, insofar as you can agree with them, or Sun Tzu's Art of War, Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince. And don't worry so much or get hung up. I hope you won't anyway on the fact that this is not your sacred text. This is my sacred text. And that's okay. We can be very, very loving towards each other when it comes to this stuff. But this is my Bible. I thought I'd show you. I've had a few over the years, but this is one that my older son got me 3 years ago. So for Christmas, I think, was it my birthday? They're close together, so I'm not sure. But this one is very special to me, and it's a large print version, which is so helpful. And I just wanted a straightforward Bible. It doesn't have a lot of concordance information with it, or very many things that are indexed. It's just a reading Bible, not necessarily a studying Bible. And I hope my little thing here stays on. But anyhow, regardless, I am in Matthew. Specifically, I'm in Matthew when Jesus is teaching about things like giving to the needy, how to deal with people who've made themselves your enemy, the Lord's Prayer. This is Matthew 6. And specifically, I want to apply this chapter of Matthew and just a few verses of Matthew to routine, believe it or not. A lot of times these verses, and I'm in Matthew 6:25, and I'm going to probably take it a little bit further down to maybe 31. So about 25 through 31 in the 6th chapter of Matthew in the Gospels, in the New Testament. So I'm interested in this for routine because of something that occurred to me quite a while back that's been super helpful, and I hope it will help you too. I'm going to read this in just a minute, but I want to talk about the importance of routine. I've jotted down a few notes for myself on my handy dandy teacher pad. It's even got a little apple in the corner. You can see that. One of the most important things about routine that we learn, especially if you know any people who have different operating systems, are neurodiverse in any way. I'm going to go ahead and take that off, y'all, because it's fallen off anyway. These don't do very well on my big head. But both of my sons are on the autism spectrum. Both of my sons have attention differences that people typically call ADHD. I think it's a difference more than it is a deficit because you're paying attention to something, just not what people are asking you to pay attention to. I also have attention difference, as I've shared, I think, on other videos. And a lot of times routine is not something that comes easily to me. So it's something I actually have to try for. If it comes easily to you, oh, please share your wisdom because that's amazing and I'm so happy for you. But it's not something that comes easily to either of my sons or to me. It does more to the disembodied voice, my husband. He's more of a person who's intentionally routine. Well, over the years, I've become more intentional in my routines because it does reduce stress for me to have a routine. It makes it easier for me to maintain that. And so it helps me maintain my mental health. It helps me maintain my physical health. And importantly, it helps me cooperate with my friends and family members better if I'm not stressed out, and also serve my students and help others as needed when I go in peace and love to serve others. Right? Video's not over yet. That's what I typically say at the end. But how does this relate to Matthew 6:25 through 31? Well, let's look at these verses real quick. I'm just going to read them to you. I hope that's okay. So this is 25, Matthew 6:25. Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat, or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Clothes, right? Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? This is the part to me that becomes really compelling. Look at the birds of the air. Right? Now, this may not seem, we're talking about animals, I may not seem to be following along with this because you may hear Gus having a fit and falling in it in the background. He wants in a place that he's not supposed to go, and he's plucking at the door. And this is a perfect example. Gus is providing us with a perfect example. He's screaming, crying about getting in here when behind him is the larger portion of the house where he can do anything really within reason that his kitty cat heart wants to do, right? This is our kitty cat. It's our marmalade kitty, our cinnamon orange kitty. Anyway, I digress. So this is back again to here. It's just to start with, nor about your body. What you will put on, is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. This gets important. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider, here we are considering again, consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. But what about these lilies of the field? Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Even Solomon in all his royal robes. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore do not be anxious, saying, what will we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? Right? Why is that important? I'm going to stop it there. That's 25 to 31 in the 6th chapter of Matthew. Why is that so important to routine, do you think? I'm going to put my ribbon there. Well, do animals have routines? That's the question. We talk about routines all the time. What time we're going to get up, what time we're going to go to sleep. Animals do have routines. They migrate at certain times. Their whole lives are routine driven. Without routines, they can't be prosperous. Migration, making new little animals, right, during times for mating, when they eat, how much they need to eat, how they make their nest. They make their nest, a bird. Since we're talking about sparrows, his eye is on the sparrow, right? His eye is on the sparrow. Beautiful song. If we think about how they make their nest or how they chirp at certain times of the day in different ways, it's all about routine and cycle for animals. And I think that's kind of a lesson to us. And when in this gospel message, we're told, and these are the words of Jesus, when we're told, don't be anxious. Don't worry about what you're going to eat and what you're going to wear. I don't think for a minute that means, don't worry about getting clothes. Don't worry about getting food. Everything will be fine. God will just show up and give you all this. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that we can't control the future. We can only control what's going on right now. And I think by sort of comparing us to the lilies of the field and the sparrows of the air, the gospel is applying itself to tell us, if you have a life where you have a regular cycle of routine, you are you're more likely to be like the birds and the flowers and not toil or spin or worry where this is going to come from and that's going to come from. You will take care of your routine daily and trust in your higher power, however that manifests to you. For me, that's God, to provide you with the things you need, all things being equal, and that you actually do seek after the things that you need in some way, but not with anxiety. Once you've done all you do, I think at the end of the day, once you've done all you do and all you can do, that's all you can do. There's nothing more that anxiety, as the verse says, is going to add to us. In one translation, this is the, I think this is the New English. This is the English Standard Version. This is the ESV. In the King James Version, I think it says that the anxiety or worry won't add a single cubit to your stature, right? It's not going to add anything to your life. So why do it? People often ask me why I am routine driven and why I am so happy, right? Why are you ray of sunshine? Some people say, well, it's not that way all the time. Ask the disembodied voice, but I do try. It's an intentional commitment to routine, to this is when we get up, this is when we go to bed, and everything in between needs to be something that's producing joy for us and for other people. And if it's not, it doesn't need to be in our schedule. I'll give you an example of this. We've recently had our TV to break, and we're not going to replace it for the foreseeable future because we have books to read. Right now I'm reading The Nine Tailors by Dorothy Sayers. I'm trying to be faithful in my prayer life and in my meditation on scripture and my meditation on other things. There's too much to do to really sit and passively intake television. We can sit down here together before we go up at night and have a nice, good read side by side, even if we're reading different things. Sometimes we do read together and one of us will read aloud. So those kinds of routines nourish your relationships, and that's what I think is the most important. So to recap, the flowers and the birds do not toil or spin or worry. Do they work hard? Yes, they do. They work hard, but they work in a routine fashion. They do what they can do. They take care of the day that's happening. And as the scripture says later, they let tomorrow take care of its own troubles. Today has enough troubles. Let tomorrow take care of its own troubles. And I don't think that's supposed to be a negative statement. I think it's supposed to be the reality that we do struggle as people on this earth. And as we struggle, why add to that struggle by worrying, by complaining too much? That doesn't mean you can't share your emotional cares, right? God, in my opinion, in my belief, my true belief, wants to be a part of listening to those things and helping me navigate them. But if I'm so anxious and so busy trying to get more stuff, or make sure that we're going to be safe tomorrow, even though there's really nothing I can do about it today, other than just the regular planning and responsibility of life that we have, we can't do anything outside of that little sphere of control. A good therapist will tell us that there's this circle at the middle of our lives. It's metaphorical, but we have control of what's in that circle. And that's it. We can't control other people. We can't control their actions. We can't control how those actions may affect us outside of a certain limit. We need not to toil. We need not to spin. We need not to worry so much. It's a human frailty to worry and be concerned, and it's not something I want anyone to feel guilty about. But being super anxious is not going to add anything to our lives. In fact, it will subtract mental health. It will subtract physical health. It will subtract from our precious relationships with our family. And our friends. Years ago, the wonderful Dr. Spencer Murray, who was one of my theology professors, said something so important. He said, really relationships are all we take from this life into the next one. And I agree with that. And I think moreover, and I think Dr. Murray would agree with me, God rest his soul, that relationships are all we really have on the planet in this life. And if we don't nurture those, where are we? Where are we? Right? Nobody has to be alone. Everybody can have relationships that are meaningful and healthy and bring no toxicity into play. But that's easier to do if you're observing a routine. And instead of thinking about it as something that you have to write down on the calendar or something that you have to go minute by minute and captive time, right? Where you try to capture it and put yourself in it and go, okay, I have to, from this hour to this hour, be productive, and then I can relax. I would think of the whole day as being productive in one way or another, whether it's for somebody else's benefit or your own, or both is ideal. It can all be productive. And instead of being 8 to 9, I'm going to do this, 9 to 10, I'm going to do this, I would think about the routine of the whole day as a holistic thing, as one big piece, and think, okay, what do I want to accomplish today? I even write that. I keep a little purple notebook for my work life, but I'll write that in a list. What do I want to accomplish today? Say I want to make sure that I grade about 25 papers, which means giving feedback and assessing those based on a rubric. I want to make sure that I've made time. So let's go into domains here. It's kind of like Stephen Covey's quadrant systems that I mentioned in another video, or that I explain in another video, sort of. I guess I did an okay job of explaining them. The spirit was willing, even if the vocabulary was weak. But the list that I make is going to only be for the day, probably about 4 things that I can reliably accomplish. Maybe I even just want to be very holistic with it, and I want to write down, I'm not actually going to do this, but I want to write down, I'm going to pretend, work, family, God, right? 3 things. And then all I have to be concerned with is, how are the things that I'm doing impacting those three areas. I tell my students all the time that my priorities are my faith, my family, and serving other people, which includes obviously my dear students. And so the idea there is if I'm doing something to do each of those things on a daily basis, then my day really is just about accomplishing three things. There are three umbrella terms, and under those fall a lot of details. But I can always say, is this serving my faith? Is this serving my family? Is this serving others outside of my family? And if I'm not in one of those activities, what am I doing? Well, as part of serving your faith, your family, and others, for me, that's mine, doesn't have to be yours, is part of that making sure that I am healthy and centered and grounded and I feel cared for and I've protected my inner child. That's a whole other video for the inner child, I think, that I'm actually going to make. Have I done those things? Well, if I have done those things, right, during the process of all of this, because I can't practice my faith without being true to myself. I can't really be fundamentally valuable to my family and fun and joyous to be with for my family unless I am being true to myself. And I can't really serve others if I'm not being my authentic self and taking care of myself to be able to take care of others. Then everything's covered. See, it really is that simple. I know it doesn't seem like it. And I know it seems like there's so many other things that are vying for your time. But here's the time to step back from those things and go, which of these things is truly serving the calming seasons and routines of my life? Which of those things is actually detracting from, taking away from the calm seasons and routines of my life? Am I like a sparrow of the air? Am I like a lily of the field? Am I not worried about toiling and spinning? I'm just following the routines. This is when it's time to build my nest. This is when it's time to go eat. This is how much I should eat. This is when it's time to feed my babies. This is when it's time to think of love. Right? This is when it's time to rest. Is that what I'm doing? Am I being like a lily of the field? Am I saying this is where the sun is and this is when I turn my face to the sun? Because that's how photosynthesis happens. Is this how I get my nourishment? Is this when the wind is blowing, how my structures are set up to interact with the wind? You know, trees, for example, I love trees. Trees, for example, have to have wind to work the way they should because that's the natural force of nature. To keep the tree from being so weak it falls down, it has to have that deep root structure to push back against the wind. The wind's not a bad thing. The wind is a good thing. Just like the work that we have to do, the things that we need to accomplish within our ability to accomplish them are making us stronger all the time. It's the same thing with the tree and the wind. So I guess what we're saying about routine in this video is routine is the wind against which we lean instead of fighting, right? Lean into that breeze and let it make you stronger. Think about it. Intentionality is everything. And this is how we're going to close this video. Intentionality is at the root of all of this. Whether or not you live by a healthy routine, someone will give you a routine to live by if you don't have one. Someone will come along and go, here's how you do this. Work from here to here, here to here, here to here. That's not necessary. Even in the way that if you work a 9-to-5 job, which I have certainly done in the past, I'm blessed to work remotely now. That has not always been the case. And so in the, how long have I been working? I'm now currently 56, hope to work into my hundreds, and have been working a job since I was 15 years old. In all of that time, I spent some of that time toiling and spinning and kind of, it's 9 to 5 or it's this to that, whatever time it was that I was working. But within those hours, can you still make some decisions? Absolutely, about how you're going to care for yourself, about how you're going to check in with others and make sure that they're okay, about how you're going to check in with whatever spiritual life you decide to pursue. So absolutely, Just because you have a routine involving a job or something else doesn't mean you can't create mini routines inside of that to keep you nourished and fed and healthy without spinning or toiling or being unnecessarily anxious, right? That's the key is if we just stay intentionally in the now as much as we can, and it's not always possible, and we're gonna, we're not even gonna call it messing up. We're gonna stray from that because we're human. But if that's your intention, to live with your eyes on the major areas of productivity in which you want to invest your life, things like I've said for me, faith, family, and serving others, if you can break it down to that, then all the things that don't serve that seem to dissipate. They used to be, oh, that's not serving that this time watching, and you can watch TV, I'm not saying don't watch TV, but this time watching TV, I'm doing that for too long. It's keeping me in a time wasting quadrant for too long. I need to get out of that, not because I just need to, right, not that at all, but because I need to devote that time to something that feeds my spirit, feeds my purposes, feeds my intentions through routine. And that routine is going to look different for every single person. But having an intentional routine will keep us more like the sparrows of the air, the lilies of the field, and the trees of the forest, right? Well, I hope you know how loved you are. I certainly love you so much. And that's why I wanted to share this with you today, because it comes directly from my heart and things that I've been pondering on and considering. I also hope that you will continue with me to go in peace and love, to serve others. And please do pray for Ukraine. And while you're at it, just pray for everyone and everything.